Hey, Chicago fans and soccer fans. This is Nick with the Feed the Fire podcast. We are coming to you to talk all things Chicago Fire and Major League Soccer. I want to remind you, if you want to get involved with the show, feel free to email glasshouseSoccer@gmail.com or follow along and interact on social media at GlassHouseSoccer. Please be sure to like, subscribe, rate, review, share the show, grow the show, and let's continue to draw more attention to Major League Soccer and the rise again of the Chicago Fire. I think it's a little odd that we haven't seen more references to the Phoenix rising from the ashes of the fire here around Chicago sports. But that is something we'll let the reporters do and fix their headlines and things. But we're going to be talking about the Montreal match a little bit, a rather disappointing 1-1 draw at home. We are going to be previewing the Red Bull New York match coming up this weekend here in Chicago. And we are also going to take a look at some news around MLS, and that's where I want to start. And I want to start talking about Peter Vermes being the first coach fired this season. He was let go from Sporting Kansas City after 17 years, I want to say, as the manager, if not more than that. I'm like scrolling through the memoriam piece here that was written by Matt Doyle on the website just to see how many years he actually has been managing. But I think it's been 17 seasons for Vermes, the longest tenured coach, I think, in all American sports. And honestly, knowing the way leagues are around the world, he might be one of the longest tenured coaches in the world, at least up until his recent dismissal. So Peter Vermes is played in the league. He played for the U.S. He's coached in the league. He's done just about everything you possibly can do in Major League Soccer, except adapt and change and grow with the league and grow with the sport and the time. So I think that's really hurt his ability to win games and to have the confidence of the fans. And when you start to see a very, very good fan base like the Kansas City fan base and supporters put out calls for his resignation, it has gotten bad. But to look back on Peter Vermes, he won MLS Cup in 2013 as a coach. He also, I believe, won as a player and is only one of a handful of guys to do that. But as a coach, won MLS Cup in 2013, 3 U.S. Open Cups in 2012, 15, and 17. He won the regular season, if you want to call it that, 4 first-place finishes in the regular season conference standings, 7 seasons with 1.5 points per game or higher. And here's a couple other stats for you if you like these numbers. 5,718 days as manager, 6,722 days as technical director of Sporting KC. However, Kansas City has gone winless in 13 games across all competitions dating back to last September, and they have looked like a bad team. So this is the dismissal of Peter Vermes. We'll see who Kansas City ends up bringing in on a full-time basis. I do believe one of the assistants is serving as the interim, but however you want to look at Sporting Kansas City and however you want to look at Peter Vermes, whether you think he was, a stalwart of MLS, a legend, an icon, whether you think he's kind of a curmudgeon old man who refused to change and just wanted to yell at people in his old age, maybe he's both. But you can't talk about Major League Soccer and you can't talk about Kansas City without talking about the influence of Peter Vermes. So Kansas City is now on to really change their organization. The one thing that I've been trying to find in the article here is whether Vermes has also been dismissed as the technical director or the sporting director as well. But I don't know how you would keep him on in one role after firing him in another. So yeah, it does look like he has been removed from the club in all aspects here. So that is the latest on Kansas City. We'll have to keep an eye on that and see how they do. Not the biggest impact against the Chicago Fire. They're not going to play each other this season, and being in the different conference, not going to be a huge impact. But it's tough to see a founding club go through a difficult situation like this. It's tough to see any club in MLS be so down. And we as Fire fans absolutely can recognize and sympathize with that. And especially when MLS prides itself on parity and being able to rebuild in one season, for a team like Kansas City and for a team like Chicago to be down for so many years recently, it's difficult to watch. So hopefully there are better days ahead for both our clubs. And with the Chicago Fire, there are definitely some better days ahead for the midfield. That was something that was absolutely lacking in the Montreal match. Again, we're back home. We're on a 3-game win streak, 4-game point streak. We're playing a struggling Montreal team who may or may not be getting a little bit of that interim coach bump after dismissing their coach prior to the Chicago game. And they dismissed Laurent Courtois, and I may in a previous episode mixed up some of his background with Laurent Simon. So apologize if I screwed that up. But regardless, this is a game the Fire should have won. Coming back home against a struggling team. However, you're playing in the middle of a rainstorm. That doesn't help anybody. If anything, that favors the underdog in the match in Montreal. And they were able to get the one goal they needed to come away with a point. But we noticed in this match, the midfield was absolutely lacking any creativity, any ability to progress the ball. Everything that the midfield was doing from a possession standpoint was backwards to the center backs, who then would push it out to the wing backs, who then would try and play it forward to the wingers, or back to the center backs to play to the wingers. You weren't seeing our midfield be dangerous, progress. You weren't seeing our midfield be those third and fourth runners in the box when the ball did get into the offensive third, and when Zinkernagel and Bamba were looking to play in across, or later on in the match, Haile Selassie, or possibly even Glasgow. Those couple of bench players who did not make an impact in this game. So what are the Fire going to do to address the midfield? We got Acosta out with injury. We got Gutierrez out with injury. Pineda's been having to come up, even though I think they'd rather leave him as a center back, backup or spot starter. I think he's doing just fine as a D mid, but kind of got Kwame, who really, I think, was looking to play very safe in this Montreal game. And then you have Orahel, who is more of that defensive midfielder, looking for those long diagonal balls instead of trying to progress the ball through dribbling and taking on defenders one-on-one. So what are the Fire going to do about this gap in the midfield? Well, here's what they did. On Tuesday, April 1st, the Chicago Fire acquired Ivorian midfielder Dje D'Avilla from UD Leiria. And I know at least one of those words is pronounced incorrectly. Apologies to Jay and everyone else who's affiliated with his former Portuguese team. So here is the press announcement from Chicago Fire Communications. D'Avilla joins the Fire as a U22 initiative signing. The Chicago Fire today announced that the club has acquired midfielder Dje, spelled D-J-E. I'm pronouncing it J. I hope that's right. Dje D'Avilla from União Deportivo de Leiria of Liga Portugal 2 via transfer, so Portugal's second tier. He will occupy a U22 initiative slot and an international roster position. His contract runs through 2028 with a club option for 2029. So we got him for 3 seasons. That is not a bad pickup. And this, again, is within the mold of, if the Fire can develop him into a top player in MLS or a really good player in MLS, they can sell him for a profit, get that transfer fee back and then some. Or if he ends up being a very good player for the team, then heck, that was a good signing, and they can kind of focus their signings elsewhere and their attention elsewhere when they need to. So one of these kind of pick your path moments for the team with this player, right? All right, now let's hear from Greg Berhalter, who says, "We're really looking forward to having Jay join us here in Chicago. He's an exciting player who has quite a bit of experience despite his young age, having already played in important matches in multiple leagues around the world. We're confident that his quality and presence in the midfield will be a tremendous asset to the group." The article continues. D'Avilla, 21 years old, joined Chicago after spending the past 3 seasons with UD Leiria, playing in over 50 matches across all competitions during that time. So 50 pro matches in the Portuguese second division at age 21. Not bad. He has also appeared this last season for 23 regular season home games and 3 Portuguese Cup games for Leiria. And here's what's interesting too, not just getting the player, but here's another quote from Greg Berhalter, who says, "We'd like to thank UD Leiria for working so closely with us. to complete this transfer. Jay's an excellent player, and we understand that it is an important time in their season. This opens the door to having a strong relationship with Lydia moving forward. So this is cool. Let's sidebar the player here for a second. Like, this is cool to hear Greg talk about these developments and these kind of partnerships, if you will. Even if it's not formal, maybe we'll call it a loose affiliation. But it seems like Portugal now is kind of a recruiting bed for the Chicago Fire. We see Leo Barroso, who they got, young 19-year-old player who's already making an impact for the Chicago Fire team. We see now D'Avilla, a 21-year-old from the second division. Like, this could be the fertile recruiting grounds for the Chicago Fire over the next couple seasons. Not to mention the fact any of these young players from Spain who are going to get exposure in the Portuguese leagues. And hey, the Portuguese second league might not be a bad place for some young American players to try and go cut their teeth a little bit in Europe and take that next leap forward in their career. So it looks to be that they're looking at Portugal as a recruiting ground. When you saw kind of the traditional way MLS teams were recruiting would be go to South America, find that 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old, bring them here for a season or two, and then flip them to hopefully a top 5 league or some big transfer in Europe. But with this, it looks like they're getting ahead of the recruiting curve. You know, they've moved away from Eastern European leagues finding players in their prime or kind of coming out of their prime in the Eastern European leagues. They're moving away from trying to raid like bottom tier League One and League Two teams in France. And they're trying to kind of find their own little, carve out their own little Chicago Fire recruiting niche over in Europe. So I think this is a good idea, and it can absolutely pay out for the Fire. Obviously, you're not going to ignore the other leagues, the other clubs, you know, players from around the world. You're not going to ignore the potential from your own academy, youth program, bringing other players in from other MLS clubs if you can. But this seems to be a good place that the Fire are establishing some good relationships in Portugal in the first and second divisions there. So very cool development there. But now let's hear a little bit more about the new signing, D'Avilla. The young midfielder began his career with Stella Club de Ajame in Ivory Coast, going on loan to Lanfiara Sport out of Kube for the 2020-2021 season. D'Avilla then spent a season at Al Hilal United of the UAE second division in Dubai before making the leap to Portugal, where he joined UD Lerea in the summer of 2022 when the team was in League 3. So after making his debut at age 18, he was part of the squad that earned promotion to League 2 at the end of 2022-2023. So he's played in some important matches there. He's got the experience from around the world, has played with some important matches, getting his club promoted. So hopefully some of these more high-profile situations in MLS aren't going to come as too much of a shock to him. And just a couple stats on him. He's a midfielder, 6'3", 180 pounds. So he's not a tiny guy by any means, but he might want to fill out a little bit of that frame if he's going to be banging against some of these big center backs in this league. He was born May 5th, 2003 in Etzekube, Ivory Coast, and that is where his citizenship is. So the Fire are trying to address their midfield concerns, address the issues going on in the team there. Now, one of the other things that the Fire have been able to do successfully over the last few weeks is move up in the league power rankings. And so let's use this to kind of segue into what we're going to expect from the review of the Montreal match and the preview of the Red Bulls. So the Chicago Fire are still ranked 9th in the MLS power rankings. And while, according to the article, they were far from their best against a CF Montreal team vibing off a new coach bump, they still managed to pull out a 1-1 draw at home. The good news here, long-term, is a home draw feels like a disappointment for this group rather than a success story. And I think a lot of other people covering the team and a lot of fans agree that this sucks. We should have won this game. Chicago Fire should have won this game. They should have scored 2-3 goals, even if they're going to let in the one from Montreal. They should have played better. They should have been more creative in attacking. You saw Greg Berhalter in his postgame say, "We're disappointed." I'm sorry, I'm paraphrasing here. I forget his exact quote, but we're disappointed or upset. I'm not happy with this performance. And I had this conversation with John Donovan, who you'll hear from in a little bit. He texted me saying, if this was a Klopas post-game press conference, then you'd be hearing positivity, like, well, the guys put up a good fight and it was tough because of the weather, and Montreal is doing that. No, Greg Berhalter was upset and disappointed, and sorry about that, John. I'll try not to mention Frank Klopas again because I know you don't want to hear anything more about him. But Berhalter is upset. He's setting standards. We as fans, after seeing them rattle off 3 straight wins on the road, now have a new kind of standard for this team. They should be meeting Montreal at home, especially in the form they're in. Now, of course, Montreal's had some players out. They've got that kind of interim coach vibe as the power rankings paragraph suggested. But we know the Chicago Fire are beat up and injured. The defense hasn't kept a clean sheet all season, I don't think. So that Montreal is going to get a goal was probably expected, even though I called the 3-0 win for the Fire. I think I was just flying too high on that one. But we should have expected Montreal to grab a goal. However, we are expecting the Chicago Fire to score 2 or 3 at home and take care of business against one of the bottom teams in the Eastern Conference. So, yes, disappointing. Silver lining, we have a new minimum expectation as Fire fans this season, and that is encouraging. I know we don't want to look at moral victories. I know we want to see results on the pitch. However, this is something that we can build on as Fire fans. And this is part of that culture change that Greg Berhalter and his staff and the people in the front office have been trying to get to happen. We can't, too many times I've been to Fire games over the last couple seasons where we go in, we tailgate, we see the supporters, we play the pregame activities with the kids, we sound the alarm, the flamethrowers are going off, the fireworks, and everyone has a great time. And then we watch the game and leave and go, yeah, they lost another one. Oh, well, that was fun. Like, that routine has to change, and we are seeing it as a result of this draw against Montreal. Now, let's take a look a little bit more about the stats here, and then we'll get to John Donovan's breakdown of the match. Zinkernagel gets the goal in the 40th minute. Great build-up, great tap-in for him, finding the right position in the box. Fire up 1-0 at halftime. And then after that, it is Sealy for Montreal in the 51st minute with the equalizer there, and that's all Montreal needed. Again, the rain really dampened the offense on this one, but I think it just exaggerated the sloppy play. The Chicago Fire did not look sharp on the ball or in possession, and as it turned out, they only ended up with 43% possession. Only 6 shots, only 2 on goal. The defense had 1 block shot. So I feel like this is a low offensive output, maybe their worst offensive output on the season. Similarly, only 353 passes at an 83% accuracy, one of their lowest, if not the lowest of the season, especially compared to Montreal, who strung together 489 passes at an 85% completion clip. The Fire only had 2 corners. Sorry, no hot dogs this time. 6 total crosses, 1 offsides. They did outduel Montreal in the air, 19-15, XG 0.7. They needed some big saves by Chris Brady to stay in this game. He ended up with 6 saves. Defense had 4 clearances. They committed 19 fouls, picked up 2 yellow cards to Montreal's 1, and that is the statistical breakdown of the match. And if you do look at the possession intervals, the Chicago Fire only controlled possession 5 5-minute intervals. They controlled 5 5-minute intervals out of this entire game, and it wasn't even when they were getting their goals. Their goal came against the run of play, essentially, in that one, or when they were just starting to pick up some of the possession. So that is something that the Fire kind of fell into old habits, ceding possession at home, taking the foot off the gas towards the end of the match, and allowing a subpar team like Montreal to bring themselves back into the game. Some of that late match stuff, we see the substitutions that may, you want to see subs make an impact, whether they help see the game out and kind of control the flow of the game and keep the opposition guessing, or whether they take over and attack and contribute to additional goal scoring opportunities. We didn't see that in this match. We saw Kwame come in for Sam Williams in the 57th, and as I think he played a very safe game. He was not trying to push those passes through some line breaking passes. He was not trying to find the wingers in the corners. He was just being very safe and wanting to control the game. And I get that when you're up 1-0, but you're in the 57th minute. And actually, sorry, when he enters the game, it's tied 1-1. And Berhalter wanted to go out and win this game, but we're starting to see some depth issues because of all the injuries the Fire have. They are subbing like for like. They really aren't making a lot of these impact moves where let me pull out a couple of my D mids, put in a few attacking mids, and then go get this game. They didn't have that option. Let me take off my starting wingers in Bamba and Zinkernagel and bring in Glasgow and Haile Selassie and have consistent performance. No, they're not at that level yet. So we do see Barlow come in for Kuipers in the 78th, Haile Selassie come in for Zinkernagel in the 79th, and Glasgow come in for Bamba in 90+1. Maybe it would have been nice to see Glasgow get in a little earlier and let those fresh legs, let those youthful legs run a little bit more. But I think Bamba was the only one that was dangerous in creating. And so Berhalter waited as long as he possibly could to pull him and bring in some fresh legs. One of the other things we were constantly talking about depth and needing that reliable second striker. I found my 8-year-old son ranting and raving about how bad Tom Barlow is. And whatever you want to say about Tom Barlow, he's a striker that doesn't score goals. And I think that's all you need to know. His first touch, again, really let him down. I think it was Bamba or maybe it was Haile Selassie who delivered just a dime right on his foot at the edge of the 18. And he tapped it right to the keeper. The keeper came out, made a good read on it. However, if he has a better first touch and can control it, or if he one times it, maybe the keeper doesn't come out and get it because the ball's 3 feet off of Barlow's feet. So that was a great opportunity for him that he did not take advantage of. Again, we can't just look at Barlow in this situation. The rest of the team did not have a good offensive game. But again, you're a striker that doesn't score goals, and that's a problem. And I will say we were in Montreal this weekend. For those of you who saw my social media posts, we did go up to Montreal for a few days over the kids' spring break, got to see the Basilica of Notre Dame, got to see the St. Joseph's Oratory, walked around Old Montreal, ate different meals from all over the city. We had French, we had Italian, we had Chinese, we had sushi, Japanese, we had Greek, there was even a Portuguese restaurant that we almost went in to try a little of the seafood there. We had poutine. We had a little of everything. We ate our way around Montreal, walked all over the city, and then sat in the hotel lounge watching the game. Just me and my son screaming at the TV like, oh, why can't we beat Montreal? And then having to remember where we are and we kind of look around a little bit and make sure everyone's cool with it. So it was a good time up in Montreal. We did get to go to Olympic Park, go into the Biodome. The Olympic Stadium was under construction. We didn't get to go in it, but my God, that building is massive. It's like a skyscraper. And then we did get to walk up to Stade Saputo for a little bit. Very cool looking stadium. But yeah, I did not get my away days mixed up. That was a planned spring break trip to go explore a new city. And yeah, a lot of fun. Anyone want to get up to Montreal, or if you guys end up going for the actual away match up there, let me know. I'll give you some recommendations. We're squared away there. But getting back to the Fire, I'm going to now turn it over to John Donovan, who will give you his takes on the game with a little bit more play-by-play and player breakdown. So, John, take it away.
John Donovan here talking about the MLS and the Chicago Fire. Nick, I look at these games. The last couple of years when I've looked at Fire games, honestly, I looked with a negative outlook at the game. I almost rooted for the team to lose because I wanted to change so desperately. Now, with our new coach and our new system, I'm optimistic about our team. I'm excited about our team. I'm really looking forward to the lineup every week. We have a lot of new players, and what's even better about new signings, we have a lot of Chicago youth out there right now that are really playing big-time football. We are not less than the other teams coming in because our tactics were so terrible When you think back at the at Klopas's team, we changed formations, and these guys changed positions so often that nobody could really get to know their job. Now with a 4-3-3, everybody knows where they're playing, what to do. You can just feel confidence out in the field. As of yet, I don't think the players are totally together yet. It takes a while. I would say in mid-July, we are going to have quite a team. I mean, I'm really high on a few of the young players. That Barrasso boy on the right, yeah, he's a little weak on his defense, but boy, does he add a lot of speed and pop on the front. And Gutman, he's playing like we thought he would play when he came here. I mean, he had a good career at Orlando, and when he came, he had those hamstring problems. But I love to watch Gutman and Bombia on that left side. They have changed the. I mean, you think of 2 years ago, we had Navarro, who got nothing but fouls, was just a disaster. Now we've got a guy who thinks well. He works with his the left wing real well. Very, very impressive. You've got. I looked at that squad, and their offense last year. We didn't even know who our left wing was last year. Selassie sort of played the right side, but now with Bamba and Hinkernagel, we have and Kuipers in the middle. We have a real quality front line, real quality, and we're starting to develop our halfback system. I mean, Pineda, I love him in that mid spot. I really do. I've always thought that was his position. I think that's where he played in college. Oriel, this guy's going to be nice. He really he's not a rough guy, but he's a classic. He's got style. He plays well. And then this new fellow that came, Kumare, he looks like an organizer out there. I was watching the way he was handling the ball and working with his teammates. Really, really impressed. The game, unfortunately, Gutman fell on a play, which happens, and he left his man wide open for the play into the goal, which Brady didn't have a chance on. But speaking of Brady, he had a really good game defensively, really a good game. But, playing for Boltire, you've just really, he puts so much pressure on the goalie. I mean, when every team knows you're playing out of the back, it makes it very difficult. I mean, I'm always uncomfortable with that style, but he's pushing it, and you can see, like last night, they got themselves in a couple of jams, and he finally let them go downfield. But you've just got to have that as an option. You can't have that team thinking that you're always going to play out of the back. He had that one when he was coaching Columbus. I'll never forget it. It was a freezing cold, super game, Super Bowl ending for the MLS, and they lost 1-0, and it was a play out of the back that killed them in like the, I don't know, third, second. It was very quick in the game. So I hope he moderates that. But overall, the team is playing so beautifully. You have new players. We've got good coaching. We've got a system. Everything is just working for the Fire. What is this? We won 3 in a row and now a tie. So it was a good game. I thought Montreal was better than I thought. They certainly gave the Fire a run for the money. The first couple of 20 minutes was all Montreal. The Fire just didn't seem to maintain it, but they're learning, and honest to God, it's just so nice to have a team that you can call your own in Chicago. Thanks a lot, Nick. Hello, Mike. Bye. Nick, John Donovan here talking about.
John, thank you so much for the recap and your thoughts on the Montreal match. Really do appreciate it. And fans, this halftime water break here in our show is brought to you by Skira Icelandic Spring Water. Get out to your local 7-Eleven, grab a couple bottles of Skira, stay hydrated. I know there's been a lot of rain lately. You may not feel like you need it, but definitely go out, get some of this water straight from a government-protected nature preserve in Iceland. with excellent quality. That water is filtered through all that volcanic rock over in Iceland to come out practically crystal clear. So make sure you support our sponsor, Skira Icelandic Spring Water, again, available at your local 7-Eleven. Now let's take a look forward. And yes, we are doing our review preview episode once again because, man, work is still kicking my butt. We just did 3 days of intense new hire training, management training, client meetings and updates, and letting everyone know, like, hey, baby, we rebuilt the team. We're back. We're going to be crushing your files just by the end of the week. Just watch. So, yeah, it's been a busy week and it's only Wednesday. But let's take a look ahead. Maybe I can get out something short and sweet before the weekend, or, we'll start back on a regular twice-a-week schedule next week if we can. But the Chicago Fire are traveling. Sorry, I think I said before it was a home match. The Chicago Fire are traveling to New York to take on the Red Bulls. They'll be on the red side of the Hudson River Derby there. That is a 6:30 p.m. match on April 5th. Oh, real quick. It was April Fool's yesterday, right? So what do I wake up to? My kids have TP'd my entire bedroom. There's toilet paper all over the place. I come downstairs to my office. They have TP'd my office. My wife didn't find it funny, but I'm like, yeah, you know what? For 11-year-olds and 9-year-olds and 6-year-olds, this is great. They had so much fun doing it. I hope everyone got a little bit of April Fool's joy and fun in this past week. But yeah, I had my bedroom and my office TP'd, and I was impressed because my kids TP'd my bedroom while I was still asleep in it. They're getting sneakier. And that worries me a little bit, but I'll have to find some proper way to get them back in future April Fool's Day jokes. But anyway, sidebar over. We are traveling to the Red Bulls this Saturday to take on a New York team that hasn't really followed up with their run to the finals in good form. They currently are sitting 9th place with 8 points. So they're in that playing game there, but they are level on points with New York City and Atlanta as well. They have 2 wins, they have 2 losses, and they have 2 draws. Goal differential +1. They have 7 goals for 6 goals against. Meanwhile, our Chicago Fire, 13 goals for 10 goals against. And unfortunately, the Chicago Fire, they have had, an odd situation here where away they're 3 wins and a loss, and at home they're 2 draws. So an interesting move by the Fire there. Not exactly great in their home form, but as we know, we got to wait till Chicago warms up in the summer, and then they'll be playing that much better. But most recently, the Red Bulls have they earned a 2-1 loss. I think this was a come from behind loss, if you will. Yes, they were up. They were tied 1-1 at halftime. Gill opened the scoring for New England. Choupo-Moting tied it up in first half stoppage time. And then in the 90th +7, Gill converts a PK. So a come from behind loss, I will say, for the Red Bulls there. But how did they do it? How did they line up? What do we need to know about this Red Bulls team that the Chicago Fire have had some pretty good success with in recent history? I don't think the Red Bulls have beaten the Fire since 2022. I'll have to go back and check that, but that's I feel like I read that somewhere. So in their matchup against New England this past week, the Red Bulls came out in a 3-4-3 formation. You've got Carlos Cornell in goal. From left to right, you've got Alexander Hack, Noah Isle, and Sean Nealis as your 3 center backs. You have Raheem Edwards as your outside left wing back, Daniel Edelman and Peter Stroud as your internal midfielders there, your central mids, and Dylan Nealis as your right wing back, right mid. And then your front line of Emil Forsberg, Eric Maxime Choupo-Moting, and Wickelman Carmona as your right winger there. So that's their 3-4-3 formation. We did see them make some moves off the bench during this game, bringing in Sergei Ngoma along the back line, Ronald Donkor in the midfield, Victor Bogesh in the midfield, as well as Mohamed Sofo up top. They did have a couple other players available off the bench, but did not opt to use them. And so Sandro Schwartz as their manager as well. So that's how the Red Bulls line up. That's where they were kind of looking to see the game out subbing in on the midfield and then bringing in some fresh legs up front, maybe to try and get a quick counterattack and steal some points there at the end of the match. But that is how the Red Bulls lined up. And I expect to see something very similar in a home match against the Chicago Fire. We know the Red Bulls do like to cede possession. They do like to press, counter press, turn the ball over, quick attack. Though with the addition of Emil Forsberg last season, 2 seasons ago, as well as a little bit of tweaking in some of their tactics, they can string together some short spells of possession, and they can kind of do some of those overlapping runs on the outside. Again, when you're playing a 3-4-3, you do like to push those two outside midfielders up and get them into attack and just get numbers into the box. And it's a pressing formation. You get more players going forward. You create more pressing, more turnover, more mismatch, more odd number situations on the attack. So it's going to be another one of those moments where are Gutman and Barroso going to be threatening enough to force Nealis and the other outside midfielder, I'm already forgetting his name, to kind of stay back, stay home. Are we going to have Gutierrez back in the middle? Is Kwame going to be so aggressive that it's going to cause that 4-line midfield for Red Bulls to kind of collapse in the center and give Bamba and Zinkernagel some room on the wings to work? That is going to be something that we're going to have to look for as Fire fans to see if the game is going to go our way, especially early on. Little bit of trivia between these two teams. It will be the 70th overall regular season meeting. The Fire hold the series advantage, 32 wins, 21 losses, 16 draws. And this will be the Red Bull looking for their first victory against the Fire since, April 30th, 2022. So they have had 2 losses and 3 draws in the last 5 meetings against the Fire. So a little bit of history on the side of the Chicago Fire here. The Fire are definitely in better form than New York Red Bulls. However, Red Bulls can turn it on at any moment, and it's going to be up to the Chicago Fire to, put out a little bit of that attack and really, the best defense is a good offense. And I think that's what it's going to be here, that the Fire are going to have to make the Red Bulls pay for their pressing and counter pressing and change their tactics once the Fire can get 1 or 2. If they can get 2 first half goals, I think that sets them up really, really well. And you know what? Let me just say, it's hard to score on Red Bulls. So let me give you my prediction now. I think this is going to be a 2-1 Chicago Fire victory, maybe 3-2. I think the Fire are going to win by a goal. 2-1, I want to say maybe 3-2. Don't be surprised if there's a lot of goals in this one, especially if the Fire can get some fresh legs in that midfield. If we do see some sort of appearance by new signing D'Avilla, or if they're going to bring up another CF2 player. I forget the young Italian player that I believe they picked them up from Roma's system in the offseason. Casano, is that it? Maybe he gets a short-term contract and sees if they need some more midfield depth from him. But anyway, looking at the Red Bulls, though, who do they have to worry about? Well, Emil Forsberg, obviously. He's the star of that team. He can do it on the offense. He can conduct, whether defensively or setting up an offense for the Red Bulls. He's got 3 goals on the season and an assist. He also leads the team in just about every statistical offensive category. He's got 12 shots, 4 on target. He's got an XG of 2, so he's outperforming his XG slightly. So he is definitely the man driving the bus for Red Bulls. Peter Stroud's got 2 assists, and then they've got 5 other players with an assist. Only 4 players have scored for them, though. So that final tap, that final goal scoring opportunity there, that shot, it's been Forsberg, Choupo-Moting. It has been Dennis Jengar, and Mohamed Sofo is the only ones finding the back of the net. But who is really going to cause the Fire fits on the defensive side of things? Let's see if any of these defensive numbers can give us any insight here. So you see Noah Isle and Sean Nealis as having the guys with the most clearances. They are not, however, winning a vast percentage of their aerial duels. And in fact, the Fire might be able to exploit Red Bulls in the air. Players who are getting consistent minutes don't have a very high percentage of aerial duel wins. Noah Isle is the highest with 78.6%. Any players that have higher, well, Carlos Cornell. Oh, why? See, we got to filter this out here because it says Carlos Cornell has won 100% of his aerial duels. Well, yeah, he's the keeper. He's going to come out, jump up, and grab the ball. So Raheem Edwards, not Raheem Edwards. Yes, Raheem Edwards has also won 100% of his aerial duels, but he has only had 3 of them. So if you want to look at the guys who are going up, with more than 10 aerial duels on the season, it's going to be Noah Isle at 78.6% as your highest. So that is an area that the Fire could exploit. I'd love to see Kuipers getting some high crosses in the box. I would love to see if Carlos Terán is healthy or Jack Elliott pushing forward on some of those set pieces. If the Fire can win some corners and then get how great would it be to see guys like Terán, Elliott, and Kuipers all in the same area jumping up for a header. Obviously, don't get in the way of your own teammate, but those are 3 really tall guys that this defense is going to have a hard time with. So it would be great to see some good set pieces. None of that near post flick on stuff. Play it right to the PK spot and let our guys go up and get it just far enough where Cornell's going to want to stay on his line. So I would love to see that. And again, I do think the Fire get a 2-1 victory, possibly 3-2 victory. I'm going to keep the good vibes rolling here as well. But it's very important that the Chicago Fire get at least a point in this match. One, let's keep that 6-game point streak intact. That would be amazing if we could extend it to 6 games, draw 3 wins, 2 draws. But also, the Fire don't have the easiest stretch of matches coming up. So they'll play the Red Bulls on April 5th. Then they've got a game at home against Miami on April 13th. I can't make it. I'm selling my tickets. Let me know if you're interested. That way I can make sure they go to a good home. Then they follow up against Cincinnati on the 19th and travel down to Nashville on the 26th. And while Nashville isn't exactly the pride of MLS at the moment, they're not setting the league on fire, they do have a really threatening attack with Sam Surridge. They're sitting 6th in the standings right now, and they've scored 9 goals in 6 games. So they are a team that can threaten the Chicago Fire. And we've seen in the past the Chicago Fire haven't really played above their competition level. They kind of play to their competition level. Maybe that trend ends this year. However, that's a difficult stretch of games. And then the Fire come home against Orlando, Atlanta before going to Charlotte, New York City, and Orlando in the month of May. So the Fire are coming up against a difficult stretch of games. So it looks like this opportunity at Red Bulls is a great opportunity and probably one of the only clear-cut opportunities where you can say with more confidence than not that the Fire could win this game and win it, by a comfortable margin, hopefully more than the goal that I'm predicting here. So that is another reason why I'm hoping that this isn't just early good vibes, that it's not, hey, we're a new team, everything's great, everything's going well, look at us run, look at us play, that it actually is a change in culture and tactics and locker room and everything, and that we're going to see a consistent Fire team. Some of the other things that people have been pointing out about the Chicago's positive run of form is that it's come against lesser competition. Let's be honest. That opening loss to Columbus, 4-2. Yeah, Columbus is still one of the best teams in the league, and definitely better. Do you want to say better coached? I'm not trying to insult Greg Berhalter here, but you got Wilfred Nancy. You've got Diego Rossi. You've got Max Arfson, who just got a USMNT call-up for whatever that's worth, depending on your opinion of Pochettino and the U.S. team right now. Not going to open up that door, but Columbus is still in third. They're still ahead of the Fire. I wouldn't expect the Fire to beat them, especially at a home opener in Chicago. But other than that, you draw DC, you beat Dallas, Toronto, and Vancouver, and you draw Montreal. And where are those teams in the standings right now? If you want to look at the Supporter Shield standings, let's scroll down, shall we? In the Eastern Conference, it's DC at 12, Toronto at 14, Montreal at 15. So the Chicago Fire have beaten the bottom teams, or they've taken points from the bottom teams, if you want to look at it that way. Now they're starting to move up into that middle of the table where they're going to take on Red Bulls, Cincinnati, Orlando, Nashville, obviously the Miami game there as well. So the Fire are going to need to be taking points from these games if they want to maintain their playoff position. So now's the time we're going to see, are the Fire for real? Is this a new manager bump, new signings bump, or are they a legitimate team who are going to play consistently, scoring 2-3 goals a game, but still giving up maybe 1 or 2 as we iron out a few things along the back line? So something to keep an eye out for. I'd like to think the Fire are legit. I think more likely than not, they are a legit team. They are a new team. And once they can get their choice starting 11 out there when everyone's healthy, then yeah, they should be able to be taking points from the likes of Nashville, Orlando, Atlanta, and Charlotte. But again, they actually have to get healthy and play those games. With that, I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Thank you for all the support. Again, like, subscribe, rate, review, share the show, leave a comment. And as always, let's go Fire.